Today we're going to answer some age-old questions. What color is an orange? Can a root beer float? How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Welcome to the St. Canard Files, a Darkwing Duck podcast. I'm your host, Mike Russo, and with me tonight is my usual co-host, Stan Lunn. Hi, Stan.
Howdy, Mike.
How's it going, buddy?
Pretty good. Not much has changed since the last time. Still grooving on Super Ducktales.
Awesome. And we promised a special guest host a few episodes ago, and we got her. Welcome back to the show, Tiffany Silver Braun.
I'm back.
We missed you.
Oh, I missed you guys too.
How have you been?
Pretty good. I actually have been going through my old storage unit and finding a lot of cool old Disney afternoon Darkwing Duck sort of things and DuckTales. That's been really fun.
Anything super notable?
I knew everything that I had. It's just really nice to have it with me again. Nice. All the, the board game, the giant size Darkwing Playmates figure, the lunchbox with the thermos, and some stickers, like some of those puffy stickers. I don't know if anyone's ever seen those.
I have.
Very old.
Yeah,
they don't really make them like that anymore.
Nope.
Yeah, so that's been cool. And I guess all my Nightmare Before Christmas stuff too from 93 also.
Oh, cool. You have all the really old stuff.
Yeah, it's literally a storage unit that I guess I've never explained it to you when saying the word storage, but it's been there since 95.
Wow, that's like cold storage.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a storage unit, but it hasn't been active for 30 years. That's crazy. That's like your childhood coming back to you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. And also some tapes here. I'll try to say this as quick as possible. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this movie, The Water Babies. It's like a British animation movie.
No.
But
I think I've heard of it.
I used to watch it all the time when I was a kid, and then when I tried to buy it back as an adult, it was like a different version of the movie, and I've been spending years and years and years trying to find the version that I watched as a kid, and I couldn't find it, and now I got the tape back, and it's I'm like, is this the only version that exists? Because I've scoured the internet for it.
So is it called? Was it made in 1978? A live-action animated family film?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Hooray! Wikipedia helps me again.
Yeah, it's crazy. You can barely even find anyone that mentions that. I found 2 people that were I thought that they said some of these lines differently, when I was a kid.
I have never heard of this, and you think I would have. It's British. It's got James Mason in it, so yeah, there you go. Samuel Goldwyn in the U.S. was released. Okay.
What do you call 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea fame?
All right, so glad to have you back. I'm glad you've been well. Holidays good?
Yep, very good. Very fun. Nice family time.
Well, I wish we could just sit here and just chit-chat for hours, but unfortunately, we have some stuff to talk about. We have an episode to review. I guess we'll start with this sobering news. We lost another voice actor who was associated with the Disney afternoon. Stan, who passed away a few days ago.
I don't remember his name.
Oh, I'm so sorry to put you on a spot. It was
I could tell you his case. Sorry.
Well, how about this? It was Earl Boen. Before we talk about who he voiced, tell us what he's most famous for, Stan.
He's most famous for playing Dr. Silberman on the Terminator movies, particularly Terminator 2 and 3.
Yeah, those are the movies I heard keep coming up when his death was reported. But for Disney Afternoon fans, a very special group of Disney Afternoon fans, it's not going to be everybody. He was the voice of Chief Knifke on Bonkers, who I think was a really funny character, but like most people, they hate him. They hate the show, they hate the character, so that's fine. But I
Pretty
enjoyed
good
him.
voice.
I think it was a great voice and a really funny characterization. Like, this guy could really do funny. I think he brought a lot to the show. So regardless of what you think about the show, rest in peace to Earl Boen. I mean, I can't believe we lost another one so soon after Susan Tulsky. The list is growing, and it's not, doesn't feel good, does it?
No.
And it also makes us realize, as the 90s babies we are, how old we're getting, and that's scary.
Totally.
Yeah, so again, rest in peace, Earl Boen. While we've got you, Tiffany, I'm itching to know your opinion on what we've seen of the Dynamite Darkwing comics so far.
Yeah, I am not really a fan of the artwork I've seen so far, but I mean, it's so early. I guess I'm still holding out hope, and we'll see how it turns out, I guess.
I mean, can you judge a book by its cover in this case? I mean, is it possible that we could? But
I mean, there's been also some comic books that I absolutely love that have not that great of art also. So
yeah, but
it's not everything.
Some of these covers are really, really unappealing, though.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan.
I mean, even the interior art,
really
a lot of
hard
it looks.
For me stuff. Oh, sorry.
No, it's
I was
fine.
Just gonna say it's really hard for me to say stuff like that because I'm an artist, so I don't want to like
rag on anybody.
I feel like they're listening. I don't want to make anyone feel bad.
I know. I mean, a lot of the interior art kind of has a very cut and paste look about it. We're just keeping our fingers crossed that the stories themselves are good and we can hear the voices of the characters and the things they say, which even Boom couldn't quite get right. Remember? So
yeah,
coming off Joe books is a very high bar. So I guess we gotta wait and see. I think by the time this one drops, I think the comic should be on its way out. Stan, when does it drop?
I believe January 24th.
All right, so this one
or somewhere around there.
Okay. Well, this episode drops the 23rd. So that means if the comic does drop the 24th, guys, rush out tomorrow and please pick it up. We'll be doing the same. And you can expect some sort of short episode or some sort of review from us about it pretty soon after it comes out. Before we get into today's episode, which is the final part of Super Ducktales, Money to Burn, we have a little bit of information about Megabyte Beagle, courtesy of Stan. What did you want to add to the information about him?
So, doing some Google searching for the character of the week, I found out what his inmate number means. It is the 6th root of 716 to the 6th power.
Oh, okay. Well, then it actually meant something. I thought it was just a bunch of gibberish because I thought kids wouldn't notice, wouldn't care, you know?
Yeah.
Wow, they did their homework. They did their math, literally.
Yep.
I thought only Futurama did that. Thanks, Stan, because I had no idea that actually meant something. So I appreciate that new little bit of information, for me at least.
No problem.
All right, so let's get into this episode. Tiffany, first of all, what is your history with Super Ducktales?
I remember seeing this when I was a kid, when it aired. I remember seeing the commercials for it and being ultra hyped. I was like a big DuckTales fan. I was, a huge fan of the comic books and the show when I was little, and it just seemed like something like this new whole aspect of it, whereas like most of the show, like I don't know, adding a new main character, I felt like most of the show was very similar to the comic books.
Right. Oh, well, this took DuckTales in a completely different direction, didn't it?
Yeah.
And the previous the previous fall, Time Is Money aired in syndication with like no fanfare. It just kind of showed up and it kind of came and went quickly. But this had a huge buildup on NBC. Like you said, you remember the commercials, and so do I.
Uh-huh.
I had mentioned to Stan in one of the commercials, they show him fighting the GICU2, which immediately captivated me. They showed his mother, they showed him in the Gizmo suit, and it felt like DuckTales had taken another step in a new direction. And it absolutely did. Now, you specifically asked early on, as soon as you found out we were doing these, to be on part 5. Why part 5?
This is, I think, my favorite episode of DuckTales, the whole series. I love this episode so much.
Do you want to hang on to your overall thoughts until we rate the whole thing?
Sure.
Okay. All right. I mean, I have my own opinion about this episode and how it fits into the rest of the story arc. I know Stan does too. We have voiced that briefly. I think we should hold off on all of that until we're done. So,
I got a lot of things to say.
Okay, so if that's the case, I will let you start us off. How does Money to Burn begin?
So it starts off with like all the, the money in the last episode, the money bin gets thrown into the ocean, and then you see all these ships in the harbor like getting ready to like try to find the money bin in the ocean.
There's a woman voiced by Joan Gerber, I believe, who goes, "Out of my way, you idiot."
Yeah. And Scrooge and Launchpad, Scrooge and
all three of them.
Yeah, all of them. They use the Comquack space satellite to try to find where the money bin is in the ocean, and take a little submarine down there.
I love before they set sail, Gizmoduck starts to like really he gives a speech. He's like, "We'll search every nook and cranny. We'll leave no seashell unturned." And then Launchpad, who's always very matter of fact, goes, "Will you park it inside so we can get going?" So up front, this is promising us a lot of Launchpad, who I didn't really realize until I really paid attention. He gets a lot of dialogue in the first act. Like, he's super important to what's going on in the first act and the third act, which is funny considering he's barely in this thing, the whole story arc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's about to get completely written out of the show for the most part, in favor of Gizmo. I know, but it's not like he didn't appear in another show entirely in a couple of years.
But yeah, Scrooge, Launchpad, and Gizmoduck aren't the only ones looking for the money bin, are they?
No. Why is that, Stan?
Because the Beagle Boys have commandeered a boat to try and find the money bin themselves. Since, as the Grizzled Pelican said last time, finders keepers.
Isn't Ma Beagle holding the pilot of the boat by gunpoint?
Yep.
What this show got away with, huh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This show is gun crazy. From one of the earliest episodes all the way to the very last one, there's a lot of gunplay. Different times, right?
Yeah.
I know.
So we're underwater, and Launchpad piloting the submarine, of course, and Gizmoduck is hooked up to the satellite system. And do they find the money bin?
Eventually, after they find a ship.
Yeah, Scrooge is like, "You're supposed to find precious metal, not rusty metal."
Rusty metal.
So they do find something, and they head off in that direction. But then we cut to, of all places, outer space. Tiffany, what do we see?
We see a giant Imperial destroyer-looking spaceship, and you hear robot voices, which I think is Frank Welker and Hamilton Camp.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and They refer to each other as numbers. Stan, do you happen to know, are those numbers references to anything?
I don't know if they're references, but I have the numbers written down. 32751 and 43618.
The other one
Yep.
goes 10-4-43618.
Yeah.
It sounds like a phone number. Does anybody want to dial that?
I looked up the zip codes, and I think it's like Florida and Ohio.
Oh, okay. But to say that our story arc is going to take a huge detour, I believe, would be an understatement. And you guys would agree with that, right?
This is the Jump the Shark episode for DuckTales.
Yep.
We all like it, right? But
Yeah.
let's call a spade, right? The episode is going to go into some really far off places and drop its conflict entirely. So back on Earth, they find the money bin. And everything's okay. We can all go home, right? Right?
Yeah.
Nope.
Nope. Oh, why nope?
Because the spaceship comes and they have they part the ocean, and Scrooge says, "Holy Cecil B. DeMille."
That's a
reference to the
joke.
Commandments.
That's the joke.
And they take the money bin, and the beagles like fall to the bottom of the ocean, and it's taken right out from under them.
Yep. So the Beagles are out of the story now. They are done. Sorry, Beagle boys.
And until the end, they do show up briefly at the end.
But this used to be a story about trying to get a birthday present for Ma Beagle. That was like from the very first scene of the very first episode. Now it's not. Now we're going into outer space, folks. Strap in. So what happens in our next scene, Stan?
So we cut back to Launchpad's place. We have a gold-colored spaceship, the USS Jumpstar, which is the first rocket with a clutch.
Hard to fly, but easy on the pocketbook.
Yep. Gets 35 light years to the gallon, and it's the only thing LP could find.
Yes.
It's like this is the beginning of the crazy physics in this episode.
This episode doesn't even try to honor real physics at all. The nephews are there they don't do anything. They're just standing there, and they're just useless. And this is definitely, Tiffany, you mentioned it, a very adult-centered story. The whole story arc really is. But that's okay. It doesn't bother me. So they take off. It takes a bit to get them in the air. And Scrooge and Gizmoduck are shouting orders at Launchpad, and Launchpad goes, "Sheesh, backseat astronauts." And then Gizmoduck says, "By the way, Launchpad, where are we going?" And Launchpad goes, "I'm only the pilot. You expect me to know everything?" So Tiffany, how do they find out where they're going? How do they get to where they need to go?
So all of a sudden they start seeing coins hitting the side of the spaceship, and Scrooge says that the money bin sprung a leak, and he opens the window of the spaceship.
I call no way.
The only thing I'll say about it, physics-wise, is at least they're all wearing spacesuits with their helmets on. So maybe
for now,
it's just yeah, for now.
I mean, everybody should have been sucked out of that spaceship when he opened that window.
Yeah.
Also,
explosive decompression.
And how many coins has the money been losing? Like,
I know.
Like he should be more worried about that.
Yeah.
Like sprung a leak. That's not good. So they land on a planet. Stan, can you describe what this planet looks like? Because it boggles the mind.
It kind of looks a little bit like Saturn if Saturn was made out of nuts and bolts.
Like there are bolts and screws and all sorts of things just floating around on this planet.
I would say that the backgrounds of this, and also the backgrounds when they're on the planet, look a lot like Duck Dodgers.
They absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Maurice Noble was a reference point for them.
Definitely.
But there's also a bit of a Metropolis feel to this too.
Mm-hmm.
So they get on the planet. They discover it's entirely inhabited by robots. And again, I get a huge Futurama vibe from this one.
Yep.
Um,
Fear of a bot.
Fear of a Bot Planet. Yeah, it's a lot of the story is very similar actually when you get down to it.
Yeah.
Who do they see on a big monitor stand?
The Master Electronic Leader, better known as Mel.
Anybody have any guesses who voiced him?
I know.
Obviously, Frank.
That's why
Frank
I asked.
Welker.
I knew somebody knew. Who was it, Sam? Was it Frank?
Yeah.
Frank
Frank
Welker.
Welker.
Yep.
Sure. He's
And-
like pretty obviously Frank Welker.
And he's like doing this stutter because obviously this guy's got a bit of a screw loose.
He's like Max Headroom.
Yeah, he is a little bit like Max. You know what? I never put together Max Headroom because the design isn't the same. But the whole thing
Yeah.
about the stuttering is very much Max Headroom. You are right. I see it. And he mentions there are inferior beings on the planet and they must be destroyed. He goes, that is all. Have a nice day before he logs off. So who has to go do some reconnaissance work, Tiffany?
Gizmoduck. Oh, sorry.
You're not Tiffany.
Yeah, Scrooge says that Gizmoduck looks like a robot, so he goes to scout out, and he says he's gonna get a little user friendly with the natives, and then
Ooh.
he immediately checks out a robot girl, which is kind of weird, and asks her a question about looking for the bin, and she says, "Is it metal?" And he says, yes, some of it. And she says they melt it down.
And I love the bit where he goes to like politely remove his quote unquote hat, but he pulls off his entire helmet.
Yeah.
And just for a brief moment, you see his face. He's like, whoops, and plops it back on. So I know Tiffany would appreciate this. It reminds me of the first Justice Ducks episode where he sees Morgana for the first time, lifts his visor and goes, hi.
Yeah.
So he comes back to Launchpad and Scrooge with arms full of just robot parts. He says, here are some disguises, and it'll lead to your money bin. Scrooge says, what are we waiting for? And Stan, what does Launchpad say?
I can't get into this cold, hard underwear.
Launchpad's got some great lines. So you see the three of them walking down a little platform. They wearing their little robot get-ups. We don't see that you see it very briefly. And then Tiffany, what does Scrooge see?
So they find these like construction robots and they're about to blast it open. And I love that robot, by the way, because he has like a cigar in his mouth, but it's like part of his, like, it's like part of him. It's part of the design. Is that he has a cigar that lights up.
Yeah, and he's got a hard hat. He's got like overalls and everything, but he's a robot who doesn't need this stuff. But he's got the cigar is the funniest part.
Yeah, totally.
So
oh.
You can go. You're our guest, Tiff.
So then Scrooge is so upset about it, he like explodes out of his his disguise.
Launchpad's left behind trying to hike up the underwear. Hey, wait!
Yeah, but it's like that's like a confusing part of the episode though. Like, why would he take off his disguise?
Because he's just that mad. It's Scrooge.
No, I mean,
he's Scrooge McDuck. He can do what he wants.
I know why Scrooge did because he was so angry, but then I don't know why Launchpad was like, guess we're taking our disguises off.
Maybe
I thought he was trying to take his off.
Maybe he's smart enough to know the jig is up. So Gizmoduck threatens the construction worker and says, you're not a match for Gizmoduck. And the construction worker robot says, no, but they are. So Stan, describe the robots that show up.
They're big, tall, and beefy.
Yeah, these things do not mess around from the looks of it. Launchpad is written out of the story for now. He asks Scrooge, is there anything I can do? And Scrooge goes, go to the jump start, get it warms up. So Launchpad leaves. And then a brief battle takes place. Tiff, you want to describe this battle that occurs?
Yeah, Gizmoduck gets all his gadgets out, which I love that drawing or that frame of him with all his gadgets out, and the skunk.
And the skunk, yeah.
And then all the other robots you see have gadgets too. They all start attacking him, and Scrooge tell him to.
Oh, and he drops the skunk.
Yeah. And yeah, what happened to that skunk on that planet?
It runs away. It screams like a cat and it runs away.
He just lives on that planet now, I guess.
It's space skunk now.
Then Scrooge tells him to use his secret weapon, which is pushing all his buttons. But they end up just getting captured and taken to Mel.
Yep. And then Mel calls them inferior units. Scrooge doesn't take very kindly to that. And he says, "Who are you melting down our money?" And Mel says, "Your money's valuable. It will be made useful into robots." And then
he also, or I don't know if this is the same part. Never mind. Continue.
Nope. Stan, by the way, we only saw his face before. Can you describe Mel?
Not particularly. I didn't take notes on what people looked like.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. I guess the most important thing is he looks like some big guy sitting on a throne, so he doesn't actually move. He does all of his acting with his arms and his head, and he has a monitor in his forehead, which makes explosions and clouds and lightning bolts whenever he gets mad. I think it even flashes some censored obscenities when he gets really mad.
Yeah. I'm not really a fan of computer animation, but I kind of feel like if this episode was redone and they computer animated the robots, it would be really cool.
I don't know. TMS might have had a field day with this guy. But this episode is also Wang at its most wacky, so it kind of works. It doesn't bother me. Okay, so Gizmoduck threatens Mel, and Mel says, "You don't talk like a robot." And when Gizmoduck says, "You bet your ball bearings I'm no robot," there's a person inside here. Stan, big mistake, right?
Yeah, because Mel grabs Gizmoduck, takes his suit off, and reveals to Scrooge that Gizmoduck is actually Fenton Crackshell.
I see this bit my wife laughed at last time we watched it, because the music at this point is still playing the Gizmoduck theme. It's still heroic, but as soon as he rips the costume off, Fenton's goofy little theme music comes back.
Yep. I love that.
And he's like, "Hiya, boss." And I heard my wife chuckle from behind the couch. I forgot what she was doing, but she laughed.
I feel so bad for Fenton, though, because Scrooge's like, "You're right, he is inferior."
Hey, if I wanted this kind of talk, I'd stay at home with mommy, dearest.
That's a reference I bet few kids got.
No. And so Mel says that these inferior beings will be processed into axle grease, and he has his guards take them away. End of Act 1.
Yep.
So, Tiffany, how does Act 2 start?
So now Scrooge is super depressed and defeated and doesn't think anything matters in life, which is a little bit out of character, I feel like, for Scrooge.
What about his family?
I know. He just cares about his money.
Not only that, but the Scrooge I'm familiar with would take this as an opportunity to make his fortune back.
Yeah.
The original DuckTales Scrooge would always fall into depression when he lost his money. That was just a thing he did. So,
yeah.
So, Tiffany, what happens next?
So, Fenton is he really wants to prove himself to Scrooge, and that he's not worthless. So, Fenton escapes. He slips out, and Scrooge says, "At least there's still Launchpad."
Yo, Mr. McD.
So yeah, then you see them both get put on this conveyor belt, which is something funny that comes up later.
So this is my favorite sequence coming up in the episode. You mind if I describe what happens in this scene?
Go right ahead.
Okay, so first of all, what I like about it is this is where the Wang animation gets super snappy. Like the drawings of Fenton here are gorgeous, like really well done. He comes in and he's like, I want a duel to prove I'm not inferior. At first, Mel's not having it, drops him through the floor, and then Fenton comes in through an opening in the wall. And we all noticed that in this shot, Mel looks over to Fenton. You could see something written on the back of his head. What is it, Tiffany?
I see VHF, but what I don't remember the other one.
Cable.
Cable and VHF.
I noticed that when I was a little kid, and I thought it was the funniest thing.
Yeah.
So Fenton proves himself to be as tenacious as he was when he first tried to get the job as Scrooge's accountant, and Mel decides to accept the challenge. Stan, what is the challenge?
The challenge is to count jars of ball bearings. Count until one person drops.
Fetch me some jars of ball bearings, my fine mailman.
We count until one of us drops. Got it? How does this counting competition go, Tiff?
Well, Fenton is kicking butt, obviously.
I like the shot of Fenton laying against Mel's body, just like casually counting, like totally nonplussed. Like he's just like
at it.
He's like, you're falling behind. And the animation on Mel like losing it and steaming and just not being able to deal is so great. Like this is a scene where Wang just really gave it their all. And I think that's why I say I'm fine with them on this episode, because they're just so kooky and fun. It really is great. What is the last challenge, Stan?
To count this jar of bolts.
And then Mel counts it, and Fenton goes, sorry, Mel, these are nuts, not bolts. Trick question. And do you notice the last thing on his screen before he explodes? Anybody?
Wasn't it rabbit? Like a storm cloud or something?
It's a bunny rabbit hopping by.
Rabbit.
And he explodes, and I guess Mel's dead. So, yay, he's done. So Fenton is excited, yay, I won. Now I'm gonna go rescue Scrooge and Launchpad.
Quick question. How does he know Launchpad's been captured? Because he ran off before finding that out.
I guess a hunch. Yep. A hunch, perhaps? I mean, it's Launchpad. I mean...
True.
What is Launchpad going to do? There's an episode a little bit later in the show. It's called Ducky Mountain High. It takes place in Canada, and they're all out in, like, the Canadian wilderness. And Scrooge gets captured by Glomgold, and he's screaming, help! Anybody but Launchpad, help!
Yeah. So I want to say something about this next part.
Yes, go for it.
So when I was a kid, I loved Mel, but at the same time, he super creeped me out. I actually thought he was like, I don't know, like not quite scary, but like creepy.
I think the scenes of him malfunctioning and blowing up could be a little disturbing if you were very young.
Yeah. And then like you were saying, like he exploded, he died, and he's just like hanging there all dead. And then Fenton says, blabber and blatherskite, and the suit is just like vibrating out of his like dead body and comes out of his forehead.
It blows out of his forehead, yeah. But I think this is the best animation of the suit going on Fenton in the entire show.
Oh yeah, I noted that too, like when it gets on him and then he does that little like catching his balance.
This whole scene, like Wang just accentuated the drama, and the music is fantastic too. Like the music is building. Dun, 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 dun. But as he's racing away from the robots at first, like the music is building, dun 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 dun, and he's racing, and then the suit catches up to him, pulls him into the sky, and you catch him from like a low angle as two parts of the suit basically can of tuna him again. And then the music does that, Tiffany. Dun 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 dun. I think there's even like a lightning flash.
Yeah.
And this episode screams, we love Gizmoduck. You love Gizmoduck. This is DuckTales now. And it's like,
and you got all the lightning wipes when they're on the planet too.
And yeah, I love that little bit. He catches his balance when he lands on the ground, and he
Yeah.
immediately blows up these robots with his torso torpedoes. Like at this point, Gizmoduck isn't playing around.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens next?
He catches up to Scrooge and Launchpad on apparently the slowest conveyor belt in the universe.
Tiffany, it's a Disney afternoon show. The conveyor belts are always slow. Like, in fact, Ducky Mountain High had a conveyor belt sequence. Half of Rescue Rangers is conveyor belt. Bonkers has like 15 conveyor belt sequences.
Should they have renamed it the Conveyor Belt Afternoon?
Yes.
They could have at least put it like them far back on the conveyor belt at the beginning of the scene when they got captured, and then they're at the front. But they were at the front when they got captured, and then they're still at the front.
There are Darkwing episodes where I'm like, guys, just step off. I know it's like, I think Easy Come Easy Grows when Busher's trying to feed them into the wood chipper. It's like, guys, just step to the side. Or
or roll off, because even though LP and Scrooge were bound, I'm sure they could have rolled off sideways.
I know, right? Gizmoduck saves Launchpad literally just in time.
Yeah.
Like Launchpad falls and Gizmoduck has to stretch his arm to catch him. So Stan, okay, our heroes are saved. What happens now?
Well, Scrooge apologizes, says that it takes more than a suit of armor to make a hero. And then Scrooge remembers his money.
Right, and he does not want to leave it behind.
Nope. So Gizmoduck says he'll handle it. Scrooge is refusing to leave, and Gizmoduck tells LP to get Scrooge back to the ship.
We're history. I love every Launchpad line is just quotable, even if it's like not even funny. I guess it's just the way Terry McGovern talks. Like Launchpad is just the best. He makes everything better by existing.
And then Gizmoduck takes care of the robots that have shown up, and I love the bit of continuity where the skunk is now missing. They remembered not to put the skunk in there.
That
poor skunk.
So Launchpad is dragging a protesting Scrooge back to the what's the name of the plane? The USS Jumpstart?
Yep.
And a line that is often quoted on DuckTales, what's more important, a couple of $250 or your life? The genie says it to Scrooge in the DuckTales movie.
Yeah.
What's more important, your money or your life? And this isn't a multiple choice question. I watched the DuckTales movie right after I watched this. I love that too. I could talk about that movie forever as well. So Tiffany, they get on the plane. There's a problem.
Yeah, it doesn't start. So
Of course it does.
Launchpad has to get out and push and have Scrooge pop the clutch.
He's like, Scrooge goes, where are you going? Launchpad goes, nowhere. Just pop the clutch when I tell you. And it works.
Yeah. Yep, it works at the last minute. They're about to fall into either lava or melted metal, and they swoop right up.
And Scrooge has a beautiful line. He goes, you never cease to amaze me, Launchpad. Like, that's a beautiful character assessment for him. Because no matter how bad things get, Launchpad always pulls something out of his butt and amazes everybody. In every DuckTales episode he's in.
Yep.
Okay, so Stan, they're up in the air. They, Scrooge is worrying about the money bin. Launchpad says there's still hope. There's still Gizmoduck. Then what happens?
The planet blows a fuse.
Yes, and this is where this Act 2 ends. Pretty bad drawing of the planet blowing up. I'll give it that. It probably could have been a bit more dramatic. But yeah, I guess every robot on that planet's dead, including the skunk.
No.
I don't think it was meant to say that the planet fully blew up, because obviously we saw the planet still there after.
But it doesn't look really well. The planet looks like
it's messed up.
True.
Still,
though in my own headcanon, I'm going to just assume that Gizmoduck rescued the skunk and put all the robots on a destroyer and sent them away.
And he put the skunk back into his armor because he's a good guy. But how do we know that was Gizmoduck who did that? So, because Stan, what happens? Are you sure?
Well, Scrooge is lamenting his lost money, and Gizmoduck Though he's lamenting the money more.
Because he says it twice.
Yeah, but then one of those Star Destroyers ends up catching them. Well, they're chasing him. Scrooge tells LP to floor it. The foot goes right through the floor and the engine conks out, so the ship gets drawn into the destroyer's hangar. And then we get a knock on.
I do love, that's a back. I do love how they show the foot going through the floor. It's just a shot of the underside of the ship. A Launchpad's foot just pops out of it. Whoops, and it goes back in. Okay, so Stan, what happens next? I'm sorry to have interrupted.
So there's a knock on the ship's door. We have all the Fuller brushes and Girl Scout cookies we need. But
Fuller brushes are not a thing anymore, but there's still Girl Scout cookies, and there's still good stuff. I still buy them every year for my goddaughter.
Aww.
They're good stuff. They make s'more ones now that
we still get Thin Mint.
And a new one last year called Adventurefuls. I'm getting off topic here, but they are fantastic. But they put them in the smallest boxes, and they're like $5 each. It's like, what a racket those Girl Scouts have. Anyway, tangent over. So Tiffany, what happened? Who saved the day?
So it's Gizmoduck at the door, and he's really messed up looking. And he says that he pushed all his buttons, and he shows them outside of their ship that he in fact got the money bin back. And
that painting of the money bin in the hangar is beautiful.
Yeah, it's awesome. But the money bin is intact, so I don't know where it was leaking money from.
Maybe he soldered it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he has a soldering thing on his. He used it when Gyro came up with the Protecto glass a few episodes from now. He had a little soldering tool in his finger that he used to try to break the glass. So maybe he did.
Yeah.
That's my headcanon at least.
The next part is like one of my favorite Launchpad moments.
Take it, Tiff.
They're flying away and all happy approaching Earth, and Launchpad's like, all right, all I have to do now is push this button. Whoops, I mean this button. And he's so casual about it, and Scrooge is like, wait, what did that button do? He's like, oh, it released the money bin.
When Scrooge reacts in shock, isn't there a sound of a cash register going off?
I think so.
Yeah. And he looks out the window, and that shot of the money bin floating in outer space is so goddamn funny.
It still makes me laugh.
And Alan Young's going, no, 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 no. And he runs after the money bin. Gizmoduck grabs him by the foot. But sir, you'll burn up entering Earth's atmosphere. I'm burning up now.
Oh.
What difference will it make? So he jumps after the bin, and the Launchpad says again, sheesh, the things he won't do for a couple of quadrillion dollars. And then, Stan, you could take it. There's a big reference here. What happens?
So Scrooge exits the spaceship, makes his way to the bin. The bin starts to heat up during re-entry, and Scrooge yells out, "Hi, yo, silver dollar!" And, he's riding the top of the money bin, which is definitely a reference to Dr. Strangelove.
He's even swinging his top hat like a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
I mean, duh. So we cut back to Duckburg, and the nephews notice something dropping from the sky. One of them goes, "Something's crashing. Is it Launchpad?"
Yeah. No one's terrified. And then
people are running away, but the nephews are just standing there. They don't know what's about to fall. They're on their bikes just watching. It could be anything.
I know.
And it's heading to the same spot where the money bin used to be, by the way.
Yeah.
which is still a construction zone. So, Tiffany, what happens next?
Then you see the Beagle Boys, and Ma Beagle's still wanting her birthday present.
Yeah,
And-
Burger's like, maybe we should never have moved that freeway.
Yeah. So then you see the bin. I love the animation of this.
Is
It's like
fantastic.
so epic. It just like crashes down in this like nuclear looking explosion. and it throws the freeway away like a ribbon, flying away, and lands directly on top of the Beagle Boys' house.
But did you notice the smoke coming off the money bin makes a dollar sign?
Beautiful dollar cloud. I love that.
I have said in multiple occasions, I really think, I love Darkwing Duck. That's established. But I think my favorite piece of Disney afternoon iconography, period, is that money bin. Like the money bin. Like in certain episodes in the movie, when they capture that money bin just right, I get goosebumps. Because I don't know why, but I just think the money bin is just a cool design. I just love I love everything about it. Like it's a character almost unto itself on the show.
Yeah.
Like I complained about during Dangerous Currency, if you show a establishing shot of the town and you don't include the money bin, you screwed up.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tiffany, what happens to the Beagle Boys?
The freeway lands on them, and I forget which one it is. Bouncer maybe is like
it's Big Time. Bouncer's Bouncer's actually not even there. It was Big Time, Burger, and Becky.
Big Time, and he's like, "Happy birthday, Ma."
He sounds so defeated though.
Yeah.
But don't you love the way the road kind of just stacks on top of itself as it falls?
Oh yeah, it's like a ribbon.
Yeah. Even like the trees are swaying, like Wang could pull out some really great animation when it wanted to.
Yeah.
All right, so the Star Destroyer lands. Very triumphantly, a large, elevator drops down. Like Launchpad and Gizmoduck come down, like very, very heroic.
Yeah, that shot is beautiful.
Like Launchpad's flight cap straps are flapping in the wind. It's like he's just as much of a hero as Gizmoduck in his own way. They land. The nephews, who are decided to start contributing something, they're like, hey, there's a noise coming from in here. This money bin hit the ground so hard that Scrooge ended up getting like, how would you describe it? Like, what happened to him?
It's like in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Wait, is that what it was in? Like he basically bent all the metal and the money bin in the shape of himself.
Yeah, pretty much, because it hit the ground so hard.
Yeah, he made a deep indentation into the roof.
There you go. Thank you. And Gizmoduck, see, he's got lasers in his fingers. He comes in and cuts Scrooge free. There you go. He's got finger lasers. I knew I was onto something. Scrooge is a bit groggy. Launchpad goes, that was a crash worthy of me.
I love the way he says, he's like, that's one crash I want on my resume.
Oh, that's what he says. You know what? He says the line I said in Time is Money when Bubba shows up and crashes into the dinosaur. That's when Launchpad goes, that was a crash worthy of me. The lines are very similar, so of course I got confused. The nephews remind Scrooge, your money bin's right where it used to be, but are you okay? Tiffany, how does Scrooge prove that he's okay?
He's like, let me see. And he tries to swim in the money.
And all the nephews say in unison,
he's fine.
Oh.
So Gizmoduck goes to leave thinking he's not needed. But Scrooge says, no, you have a bin to guard. And tell your friend Fenton I have lots of work for him too. And it's cute. Yeah. So they high five. They handshake. They shake on it. And then Gizmoduck leaves, excitedly screaming, I'm two somebodies.
Yeah, and then what's super weird about that is this is like, I think maybe the biggest error in it is like he's with Scrooge super far away, and then he says, I'm two somebodies, and then there's another Scrooge.
Standing with everybody else by the ladder to the money bin. Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, it's super weird.
So we have a few more scenes with Fenton. We have to wrap up his story. Stan, what's the first scene with Fenton?
We're back at the trailer park, and Mama's watching as the feathers fly when Fenton shows up. Apparently, he's been gone to days. She wants him to wait till the commercial, but he decides there's going to be changes.
He tells her, I want this place cleaned up. You're going to treat me like somebody, like Mr. McDuck does, and I want your hair out of that curlers before I get back. Got it?
And she salutes him. She knows he means business.
It doesn't
Yep.
last long, though, because the next time we see her in the future episodes, it's just as big of a dump.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like the one and only time that she doesn't have the curlers.
And then the next scene, Tiffany, wraps up a second part of Fenton's story. Like, he finally gets what he wants. What does he do?
He goes to ask out Gandra D and is explaining how he's moving up, up, up in the world.
But we're not
And-
talking mountains here.
Yeah. And she agrees to go out with him, but says that she was actually into him before, like when he was a bean counter. And
Really? How come we never went
the
out?
reason why, yeah, the only reason why she didn't go out with him is because he never asked.
And then we get our last scene. We see two people on a movie screen kissing, and we pull back to reveal Fenton and Gandra are watching it in Gandra's Thunder Duck. And they're snuggling, and you hear Mama Crackshell's voice. She goes, "Hey, you're blocking the screen, and pass me on the box of Quacker Jacks." She's sitting behind them in the back seat. She's all dolled up. Good for her. And they give her the Quacker Jacks, and it ends with a heart iris out.
Yep. I'm glad to see Gander D got her Thunder Duck back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good for her.
Yeah.
And
Because I'm assuming everybody got what they owned back. Like, they never really explain it, but Scrooge has his mansion back next time, so
Yeah.
I guess Ma doesn't own it anymore.
well, I'm sure once it was revealed they stole the money bin, that was the end of that. Once she drove downtown with that thing, I think the charade was over. I'm
Probably.
pretty sure.
So do you think Quacker Jacks are made by Quacker Jack toys?
I don't know. I wouldn't want to eat foodstuffs that guy made. No. I wonder if somebody were like, Quacker Jack, that's such a good name. We got to use that somewhere else. A few things I didn't mention going in the first episode. A few points of trivia. This is the only piece of aired DuckTales media that did not start with the theme song. It went right from the Michael Eisner intro to the Beagle Boy scene at City Hall, which was a prologue, and then the establishing shot of the money bin. Super Ducktales was written in the standard DuckTales font. There was no like white block letter title card. It was Super Ducktales in the DuckTales font. And it didn't even end with the DuckTales theme over the credits. It ended with a different piece of music from the show. So this is the one piece of DuckTales media that did not include the theme either in the front or the back.
Huh.
Yep.
Whoa.
I just thought that was interesting trivia. Like, at no point watching this in TV movie form would you have heard the theme song.
Wow.
It's interesting trivia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, 'cause
so
it's at the end of the movie, even.
So we have a few things we got to cover before we wrap things up. We have Mel. We should probably rate him. I think we should just rate him quick. I'll start. I'll give him a 3.5. The voice work is fun by Frank Welker. The design is kind of cool. The Wang animation's neat. But once the episode's over, you kind of forget him. He's no GICU2.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I'm done. Tiff?
Wait, what is it out of 5?
5 dimes. So a total of
All right.
50 cents.
I don't know. I'm gonna give him 5 dimes because he's one of the reasons why I love this episode so much.
Cool. And Stan?
And I'm actually sticking with your 3.5 score. That his voice is nice. He does have a bit of a commanding presence, but he's also very easily forgettable.
Yeah. Okay, so
No.
why don't we kill 2 birds with 1 stone, each of us, by giving a rating for the episode and a rating for the entire story arc. Once again, I'll knock this out quick. I'll start. I'm giving this one a 5 because what it does right, it does phenomenally right. The heroic Gizmoduck stuff is the best it ever was. Launchpad is really freaking funny throughout the whole thing. There's some iconic shots of the money bin. It just has a problem with the fact that the story should have ended with part 4. So this one doesn't really fit, but on its own as a solitary episode, it really is fantastic. The entire story arc is basically my favorite DuckTales thing ever, period. I've memorized the damn thing. I can't give it any lower than a 5 because I'm biased. Simple as that. I love it to death, and Gizmoduck is one of my all-time favorite Disney characters. Up there with Darkwing. Tiffany.
I pretty much agree. I love this whole story arc, and for the episode, I'm gonna give it a 5 for sure because it's my favorite. But weirdly, I'm gonna give the whole story a 4.5 because of this episode, if that makes any sense. Just
That makes
because
sense.
it makes it like it, it should have been its own episode, and it's a little weird that it was tacked on. But other than that, like, I love it too. It's like, I love Gizmoduck. I feel like weirdly, I probably like Darkwing Duck because I loved Gizmoduck so much. Like when it really comes down to it.
I think Darkwing having some DuckTales attachment is part of why I liked it so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because like the Gizmoduck in DuckTales is very similar to how Darkwing Duck's character is. And then they changed Gizmoduck for Darkwing's show.
I don't think Gizmoduck is as good on Darkwing because he really comes across as truly annoying.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still fun. Stan, your scores?
So for the episode, I'm actually giving it a 4 because of two big things. One, that, as you said, the storyline really should have ended with the last part. Aside from the couple things to wrap up with Fenton, there was no real need to have this whole space adventure. And I also have to dock it a little bit because of how Scrooge treated Fenton towards the end of this one.
Makes sense.
But still a pretty solid episode. As for Super Ducktales as a whole, I'm giving it a solid 5.
All right.
I love the whole storyline, how, the creation of Gizmoduck, the Beagles, getting a hold of the instructions, going on a crime spree, seeing Scrooge at some of his lowest lows, it all just works perfectly.
Okay, before we move into the goodbyes and the plugs, as long as we're talking about DuckTales and the Money Bin, I did mention I watched the DuckTales movie, and I think I hit. I've always kind of known this. My all-time favorite, anything DuckTales revolving around the Money Bin, I'm going to say, I think I might have mentioned this on the show. Maybe, I don't know if either of you are too familiar with the movie. Maybe you'll agree with me. I love that bit in the DuckTales movie when they're in the Money Bin, and Murloc's got the lamp back, and he asks the genie to turn the money bin into his old castle. And as he's doing it, Scrooge notices the wall around the vault crumbling. He dives into the money, which is like sloshing around like a wave. Before he can even grab a handful of it, it turns to stone. And Alan Young's read on "Me Money" is so heartbreaking, and the music is phenomenal. And then that bit with the staircase and the kids, as it just rips off the wall, and Rusty Taylor's screaming as Webby, and it's like it's alive, ripping through the building, like, and then the money bin loses the entire facade. Like, that is goosebump stuff. I mean, the movie isn't perfect, but when it wants to hit that dramatic moment with the money bin, it goes for it 100%. Like, I hear it. I heard Tiffany saying a few affirmatives there. You agree?
Yep, I agree. I love that sequence so much, especially the part with the money transforming.
Yeah, and just Scrooge is so heartbroken. And Stan, have you seen the movie, or at least seen it recently?
I saw it a long time ago, and I'm not familiar enough to say anything at this point. Besides, I'm sure maybe at some point we'll tackle that one.
Yeah, we should definitely talk. Even if we have to break it up into a few episodes, I think we should talk about it.
Yeah, I love that movie.
And I'd love to have you on for some of it, Tiffany, if you have the availability.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so
I've got 2 things to say.
Beautiful. Go for it.
All right. So one, I was going to say, this is another interesting thing about this episode and why I like it so much. So I don't know if you guys know that I do a little bit of music, like on my one YouTube channel, Radio Activity. I They do like remixes and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have a song. I haven't posted it on my YouTube though, but it actually samples Mel, and that's like the core of the whole song is Mel and all the lines from this episode.
What's it called?
That song is called Like a Robot, but I haven't posted it yet.
Oh, well, when you do, let us know, and maybe we'll link it on the Facebook groups.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So and then, huh?
No, go ahead. Don't want to interrupt you. You're our guest.
The other thing I was gonna say is about this whole storyline. So yeah, that Futurama episode, Fear of a Bot Planet, is very similar, and it's not necessarily because it was inspired by this DuckTales episode. They're both kind of based off of this short story. I mean, yeah, from this book called Star. Wait, oh my gosh, I don't even remember what it's called. Star Log, I think. The story,
yeah, that sounds right.
It's called the 11th Voyage is the story, and it's about someone going to a robot planet, and there's like a leader, like a robot leader, that they have to be in disguises, like robot disguises made out of junk. So like that whole thing from both episodes is from that old story from the 50s.
So DuckTales did it first.
Yep, it's Stanislaw Lem, which I was gonna say maybe it's far-fetched, but Lem is Mel backwards.
Oh, maybe it is. No, you might be right. Yeah. Okay, so we gotta move on here. Unfortunately, we are the St. Canard Files, a Darkwing Duck podcast. You can find us on all podcast apps. Won't list them. If you have the podcast app, whatever it is, we're on it. We're also on YouTube. Tiffany, you want to plug yourself really quick? Unless what you just said sufficed. If you have more to want to plug, go for it.
I'll just say my Instagram at Tiffany Silver Braun.
How about you, Stan?
I'll take a pass this time.
Okay. Hey, if you want to know how you can see what Stan's up to, you can always check out previous episodes. So, not to rush, but we are well over an hour tonight. We apologize. I'm going to make a public apology to Will, who has to edit this mess.
Sorry, Will.
Sorry, Will. So until next week, hopefully we'll get you back on for something else, Tiffany. I'd really love to have you on for something. Maybe me and you could do an episode where we just talk about DuckTales for a little bit longer.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I think we have a lot more we could say. Until next week, friends, we don't know what's coming up next. Probably the review of the new Darkwing comic. Because that'll be out by the time you hear this, if not the day or two later. Until then, everybody, stay dangerous and have a wonderful day.
Stay dangerous, everyone.
Watch out for space skunks.